At exactly 2:47 p.m. on a Thursday, I held up my resignation letter to the camera during our investor call. 15 people saw it, including the entire board and our biggest client. The company lawyer's face went white, and he leaned forward toward his microphone. "Bob, please tell me you're not doing what I think you're doing," but I was. 25 years with Pinnacle Industries, and it came down to this moment. One letter, one badge, one very expensive mistake that wasn't mine. Let me back up and explain how we got here. My name's Robert Keller. Bob to most folks, I'm 58 years old, been with this company since I was 33, back when we had 200 employees instead of 2,000. I've survived 4 ownership changes, 3 major restructuring attempts, and more incompetent executives than I care to count. But I'd never seen anything quite like Brady Sheffield. Brady showed up 3 months ago with his Wharton MBA, his transformation consultant title, and about as much real-world experience as my neighbor's teenage son. 29 years old, never managed a P and L in his life, but he could speak fluent PowerPoint and throw around buzzwords like synergistic value optimization without cracking a smile. The new CEO loved him, called him a fresh perspective. I should have seen it coming when they brought him in to modernize our client engagement strategy. In my experience, anytime someone wants to modernize something that's already working, you're about to watch them break it. The Hartwell Group contract was my baby. I'd been managing that relationship for 7 years, growing it from a $2 million pilot program to $14 to $22 million annually. Patricia Lawson, their head of operations, and I had built the kind of professional trust that keeps contracts intact during rough patches. We talked every other week, sometimes just to check in. She knew she could call my direct line at 6 a.m. or 8 p.m. and get straight answers. But apparently that kind of relationship management was legacy thinking according to Brady. The first red flag came during our monthly client review in November. I'd prepared my usual detailed analysis, retention metrics, satisfaction scores, growth projections for the next quarter. Brady cut me off halfway through slide 3. "Bob, this is exactly the kind of granular micromanagement we need to move away from," he said, not even looking up from his laptop. "Our clients want scalable solutions, not babysitting." I clicked my Mont Blanc pen twice against the table. It's a habit I've had for years when someone says something particularly stupid in a meeting. Brady, the Hartwell Group specifically requested more detailed reporting, not less. I've already spoken with their procurement team. They're interested in our new automated service model. That was news to me. And it would have been news to Patricia, who'd never mentioned any interest in automation. In fact, she'd specifically told me 6 months earlier that Hartwell valued the personal touch in our service delivery. But Brady apparently knew better. Over the next 6 weeks, I watched him systematically dismantle everything I'd spent years building. Client meetings I'd been running suddenly had new attendees, junior analysts who couldn't tell a quarterly review from a quarterly report. My business development calls became optimization assessments led by consultants who'd never actually talked to our clients before. The breaking point came when Brady scheduled what he called an organizational realignment discussion with Patricia. I found out about it from my assistant, Sarah, not from Brady himself. Just a quick sync to streamline communication channels. He told me when I confronted him about it. "Nothing to worry about, Bob. We're just updating some processes." I knew Patricia Lawson pretty well by then, had worked with her since she was a director, and I helped her navigate a compliance audit that could have cost Hartwell millions in penalties. We'd built the kind of professional relationship that survives leadership changes and budget cuts. The kind Brady wouldn't understand if it came with a Harvard Business School case study attached, but I didn't fight it, not openly. Instead, I did what I'd always done when dealing with corporate nonsense. I documented everything. Every email I wasn't copied on. Every meeting invite that mysteriously disappeared from my calendar. Every client interaction that got streamlined around me. I kept it all in a folder labeled succession planning. Because here's the thing about institutional knowledge, it's only valuable if the institution recognizes it has value. And increasingly, Pinnacle was making it clear that my 25 years of experience was considered more liability than asset. The real problem wasn't Brady's incompetence. I dealt with incompetent executives before. The problem was what he represented. The complete devaluation of relationship-based business practices. Everything I'd learned about reading clients, about knowing when to push and when to pull back, about building trust that translates into long-term contracts, all of it was now outdated methodology that needed to be disrupted. Meanwhile, my wife Linda was fighting her own battle. Stage 2 breast cancer, treatments going well, but the medical bills were mounting despite our insurance. We were counting on my pension and accumulated stock options to carry us through retirement. I couldn't afford to get fired, but I also couldn't afford to watch Brady destroy the relationships that had been keeping our department profitable for the better part of a decade. 3 weeks before everything went sideways, Gary Hoffman from legal called me into his office. Gary and I went back 24 years minus he joined Pinnacle 6 months after me, and we'd weathered 3 different ownership changes together. When Gary closed his door and asked me to sit down, I knew something was wrong. "Bob, I need to ask you about the Hartwell contract," he said, pulling a thick folder from his desk drawer, specifically about Clause 7.4. I knew exactly what he was talking about. The relationship continuity provision. That's the one. Patricia Lawson insisted on it during the 2019 renewal, right? It was actually my idea, but Patricia had pushed hard for it after a competitor tried to poach their business by promising fresh perspectives and innovative approaches. The clause was simple but powerful. If the primary relationship manager left Pinnacle voluntarily or otherwise, Hartwell could terminate their entire contract within 30 days without penalty. No questions asked, no negotiations required. Gary, please tell me you're not asking, because Brady wants to restructure client management completely. Move everything to what he calls a distributed team model. Your role would be eliminated. I clicked my pen 3 times, slow and deliberate. Distributed to who? Brady and his junior analysts. That's the plan. He's presenting it to the board next week. Has anyone actually explained Clause 7.4 to him? Gary's expression told me everything I needed to know. Nobody had bothered to read the contract they were about to violate. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee and the original Hartwell contract spread out in front of me. Linda was already asleep. The chemotherapy sessions had been draining her more than she wanted to admit. I read every word of that contract like it was scripture, but I kept coming back to Clause 7.4. The language was crystal clear. Patricia and I had spent 2 weeks hammering out the details with our respective legal teams. Hartwell had been burned before by account managers who disappeared during critical project phases, leaving them scrambling to rebuild relationships from scratch. They wanted protection, and I'd given it to them. I just never thought I'd be the one triggering it. Over the next 2 weeks, Brady accelerated his timeline. Suddenly, I wasn't invited to client strategy meetings I'd been running for years. My quarterly business reviews became legacy documentation that needed to be transitioned to newer methodologies. When I asked Brady directly what my role would be in his new structure, he gave me the kind of smile you see on car salesmen and politicians. "Bob, we're going to leverage your institutional knowledge in a more strategic capacity. Think of it as a promotion." Translation. They were putting me out to pasture but didn't want to deal with the paperwork of actually firing me. The investor call was scheduled for Thursday, 2 p.m. Standard quarterly review with our 3 major institutional investors plus the board. I'd been running these calls for 6 years, walking through client metrics, contract renewals, pipeline projections. This time, Brady was listed as the primary presenter, with me noted as supporting participant. I joined the Zoom at 1:55 p.m. from my home office, camera off, microphone muted. 15 participants total minus both institutional investors, the full board, and Patricia Lawson from Hartwell. Having a client on an investor call was unusual, but not unheard of when they represented that much revenue. Brady opened with his standard slide deck. Market positioning, competitive advantages, operational excellence initiatives. Same corporate poetry he'd been reciting for 3 months, but now he was performing it for people who actually cared about quarterly numbers. Then he got to slide 12. Client relationship optimization. As part of our modernization initiative, we're transitioning from legacy one-on-one relationship models to integrated team-based approaches. He announced with the confidence of someone who'd never actually managed a client relationship in his life. This will allow us to serve clients more efficiently while reducing overhead and creating scalable processes. That's when I saw Patricia's camera come on. She looked confused. Brady continued, clearly reading from his prepared script. For example, our Hartwell Group engagement is transitioning from individual relationship management to our new collaborative service model. This change will take effect at the start of next quarter, allowing for a seamless transition to more efficient service delivery. Patricia unmuted herself. "I'm sorry, Brady, but this is the first I'm hearing about any transition. We haven't approved any changes to our service structure." Brady's smile flickered for about half a second. "Patricia, as we discussed in our recent alignment meeting, these changes will actually enhance your service experience through expanded resource access and improved response times. We discussed reporting improvements, not eliminating our primary contact. Where does Bob Keller fit into this new model?" And that's when Brady made his fatal mistake. Bob's been transitioned to a strategic advisory role. He won't be involved in day-to-day client management going forward. Our team-based approach will provide you with multiple touch points instead of relying on a single relationship manager. The silence that followed lasted maybe 5 seconds, but in Zoom time, that's an eternity. You could almost hear the gears turning in Patricia's head as she processed what Brady had just announced. Patricia's voice, when it came, was sharp and professional. "Brady, I need to speak with your legal department immediately." Gary Hoffman unmuted himself. Patricia, I'm here now if you'd like to discuss anything. Gary, I need you to pull the Hartwell contract and review clause 7.4, the relationship continuity provision, and that's when I saw it happen. Gary's face went completely white. Two of the board members leaned forward simultaneously. One of the investors started typing frantically, probably pulling up their own copy of our client contracts. Brady, completely oblivious to the legal bomb that had just gone off, tried to regain control of his presentation. As I mentioned, these changes are designed to provide enhanced service delivery through streamlined processes, and Patricia cut him off cold. Gary, am I understanding correctly that Bob Keller is no longer our primary relationship manager? That appears to be what Brady just announced. Yes. Then we have a serious problem. That's when I clicked my pen once and turned on my camera. The change was immediate. You could see people's eyes shift to my square on the screen. I'd been sitting in my home office, wearing the same navy blue suit I wore to all important calls. My 25-year service pin was visible on my lapel, catching the light from my desk lamp. I didn't say anything at first, just reached into my top desk drawer and pulled out 2 items I'd prepared that morning. A resignation letter signed and dated, and my Pinnacle employee badge, the one with my photo and security clearance that I'd carried for a quarter century. I held them up to the camera, steady and clear. The resignation letter was brief 3 sentences, effective immediately, citing personal reasons, nothing dramatic, nothing accusatory. Just professional and final. Still no words from me. Brady finally noticed what was happening. His face went from confused to panicked in about 2 seconds. Bob, I think there might be some confusion about your role transition. This doesn't require any dramatic. I reached over and muted his microphone. The irony wasn't lost on me. 25 years of service, and I ended it by silencing the person who'd been systematically silencing me for months. Patricia's voice filled the sudden quiet. Gary, how long does clause 7.4 give us to exercise our termination option? 30 days from notification of primary relationship manager departure, and Bob's departure would qualify as notification under the contract, given that it just happened live in front of all parties. Yes, that would definitely qualify. One of the board members, Margaret Stern, I think unmuted herself. What's the total financial exposure on the Hartwell contract? Gary's voice was barely audible. 14-tone $2 million annually. That's when the real chaos started. Multiple people trying to unmute at once, private chat messages flying across screens, cameras turning off and on as people tried to figure out what had just happened. Through it all, Patricia remained completely calm. I'll need to discuss this with our board, but I wanted everyone on this call to understand that Hartwell takes relationship continuity very seriously. We built our partnership with Pinnacle specifically around Bob's expertise and institutional knowledge. I finally unmuted myself. Patricia, it's been a privilege working with you and your team for the past 7 years. I'm confident you'll make the right decision for Hartwell's future. Then I clicked leave meeting and closed my laptop. The silence in my kitchen was deafening after 3 months of corporate noise. I sat there for a moment looking at the resignation letter and badge on my desk, then walked to the refrigerator and opened a beer. It was 3:15 in the afternoon, but I figured the occasion called for it. My phone started ringing within minutes. Gary Hoffman first, then Margaret Stern from the board, then Patricia directly. I let them all go to voicemail. Linda was at her treatment appointment, so I had the house to myself to process what I'd just done. The first voicemail was from Gary. Bob, please call me back immediately. We need to discuss options. The second was from Margaret. Bob, this is Margaret Stern. I think we may have had a miscommunication about your role transition. Please call me. The third was from Patricia. Bob, I wanted you to hear this directly from me. We'll be exercising clause 7.4. It's nothing personal. It's purely about contract compliance. Call me when you get this. I deleted all 3 messages and turned off my phone. Linda got home around 5 p.m., tired but in good spirits. The treatment was working, and her oncologist was optimistic about her prognosis. I made her a cup of tea and we sat on the back porch while I explained what had happened. You resigned? She asked. Not accusatory, just clarifying. I resigned. During a meeting with the board and investors, and our biggest client. And this client can cancel their contract because you resigned? They can, and they will. Linda was quiet for a long moment, processing. You feel good about this? I clicked my pen twice. I feel good about not having to watch Brady destroy everything I spent 25 years building. I feel good about not having to pretend that experience doesn't matter, and I feel good about showing them exactly what institutional knowledge is worth. What about your pension? The stock options? I'm vested. The pension doesn't disappear because I resigned. And honestly, after watching what Brady was doing to our client relationships, I'm not sure those stock options were going to be worth much anyway. The Hartwell termination notice arrived by email at 8:42 p.m. Formal PDF signed by their general counsel, citing Clause 7.4 and effective in 30 days per contract terms. 14.2 million in annual revenue, gone with a few mouse clicks. By the time Linda and I finished dinner, word was already spreading through the industry. My LinkedIn profile had 47 new connection requests, including messages from 3 different consulting firms and 2 former colleagues who'd left Pinnacle years earlier. The message that made me smile came from Patricia herself. Bob, we never wanted to leave Pinnacle. We just wanted to keep working with professionals who understood our business. When you're ready to talk, call me. I poured myself another beer and started reading through the consulting opportunities. For the first time in months, the future looked interesting. The next morning, I woke up to 23 missed calls and 67 unread emails. Word travels fast in the corporate world, especially when someone brings down a $14 million contract during a live investor call. The first call I returned was from Patricia. She answered on the second ring. Bob, I hope you know this wasn't personal, she said without preamble. But we couldn't ignore what just happened. I understand completely. You're protecting Hartwell's interests, just like you should. The board met last night. We're exercising Clause 7.4, but we want you to know the door's open if you land somewhere that can serve our needs. I appreciate that, Patricia, more than you know. The second call was from Tony Castellanos, a guy I'd worked with 15 years ago who now ran his own consulting firm. Bob, I saw what happened yesterday. Half the industry's talking about it. You available for lunch? By noon, I had 3 firm job offers and 2 more companies asking for preliminary discussions. The consulting world is smaller than people think, and my little Zoom performance had made the rounds. One firm offered me a senior partner track with full benefits and equity participation. Another wanted me to head up their client retention division. But the call that made me smile came from Sarah Martinez, CEO of a mid-sized firm called Nexus Partners. Bob, I've got a proposal for you. We're small, we're growing, and we need someone who knows how to build relationships that last. Interested in starting your own division? Meanwhile, Pinnacle was imploding. Gary Hoffman called me around 2 p.m., sounding like he hadn't slept. Bob, the board's in emergency session. They want to know if there's any way to salvage this. What's to salvage? Brady got what he wanted, modernized client management. Brady's been terminated. I wasn't surprised when. This morning, security walked him out at 9 a.m., and the Hartwell contract. Gone. Patricia's team submitted formal termination paperwork this morning. 30-day notice exactly as specified in Clause 7.4. Gary, you want some advice? Next time someone wants to restructure client relationships, maybe read the actual contracts first. The silence stretched for about 10 seconds. The board would like to discuss bringing you back. Different role, better compensation. I'm not interested, Bob. Please, we're talking about a lot of money here. Gary, I spent 25 years building those relationships. Not the company me. Patricia Lawson trusts me, not Pinnacle Industries. Janae Hartwell knows my voice when I call, not your company's automated phone system. That's what Brady never understood, and apparently what your board doesn't understand either. I hung up and called Sarah Martinez back. The Nexus Partners offer was straightforward. Senior partner, equity stake, full autonomy to build a client services division from scratch. No corporate oversight, no transformation consultants, no PowerPoint presentations about synergistic value optimization. Just me, my Rolodex, and the kind of relationship building that actually keeps clients happy. I signed the contract that afternoon. Within 2 weeks, Patricia Lawson had moved Hartwell's business to Nexus Partners. Not the whole contract. That would have taken months of legal work, but a significant pilot program worth $3.2 million annually. 2 other former Pinnacle clients followed within the month. The best part wasn't the money, though the money was good. The best part was walking into my new office and seeing my name on the door, Robert Keller, Senior Partner, Client Relations. No bullshit title, no corporate doublespeak. Just exactly what I did and who I was. Brady Sheffield's LinkedIn profile disappeared about 6 weeks later. Word was he'd taken a position with a startup in Austin, probably telling them all about his experience modernizing legacy business practices. Good luck to them. The story became something of a legend in our industry. People started calling it the Keller Clause, any contract provision that protects clients from arbitrary account management changes. I got invited to speak at 3 different conferences about relationship-based business practices. Turns out there were a lot of executives who were tired of watching consultants destroy functioning systems in the name of optimization. 6 months later, Linda's cancer treatment was complete and her prognosis was excellent. We celebrated with a long weekend in Charleston, walking on the beach and talking about the future. My new firm was profitable, my clients were happy, and for the first time in years, I was working with people who valued experience over innovation theater. Patricia sent me a bottle of wine for my birthday with a note. Thanks for showing us what real client service looks like. I still have that Mont Blanc pen. Still click it when people say stupid things in meetings. The difference is now when I click it, people actually listen. Listen, if you're 50-something and watching some young consultant tear apart everything you've built, here's what I learned. Your experience isn't legacy thinking. It's institutional knowledge that took decades to acquire. Those relationships you've built, they're assets, not liabilities. And sometimes the best way to prove your worth is to show them exactly what happens when you're not there to hold things together. Don't let anyone convince you that experience doesn't matter. In a world full of transformation consultants and disruption specialists, the ability to build trust and maintain relationships is more valuable than ever. Know your worth, document everything, and never be afraid to walk away from people who don't appreciate what you bring to the table.